Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today we do need to talk about something that's gonna be relatively controversial, because I have been hearing more and more of the opinion and rumblings that MCOC is becoming too difficult. And I obviously have my personal opinion that I will be trying to express in the course of this video, but as I get further, please do keep in mind that it is in fact largely my personal opinion. And everybody can have one, and that's perfectly cool. And if you have a different one, go to the comment section and let everybody know what is your opinion. But we need to get something established as the base premise of the video. And that will be the simple fact: if the game becomes too easy, any game, not just this one, any console game or any mobile game, or either way, any game you play loses a lot of quote-unquote the fun aspect the moment it becomes too easy. As in, like, I remember when I used to play old PC games, and I don't know, GTA or whatever, or I think there were like these Heroes games where it's kind of like strategy games, and there were like a lot of these kind of like cheat modes available, whatever, online. And as soon as you enabled, let's say, quote-unquote God mode in game, where you had all the gold, all the abilities, everything available and unlocked, you could have relative some amount of fun in the game, but the essence of the game was immediately gone. You weren't playing it the way it was meant to be played, and that completely changed it. Now, there are people who probably like that, but for the vast majority of the people, it kind of ruined the fun. And in mobile games, part of that quite often is monetary, where you can just buy everything. It kind of ruins the fun because you're well ahead of everybody else, and you effectively, anybody who spends a lot of money on this game is playing a completely different game to people who do not. Anybody who has played this game for 4 years playing a completely different version of anyone who has just recently downloaded it a year ago. So our experiences and opinions and values in these games are significantly different, and I can only share my personal perspective and the assumptions that I can make of trying to put myself in the shoes of others. And when it comes to MCOC, we have definitely seen a drastic shift in the mentality with Act 7, with variant content. It's getting easier. But it's getting easier not just solely because Kabam is making it easier for us to clear. It's also getting easier because our accounts are growing. So that is the first thing that needs addressing. For instance, when the first variant came out, even I only had like one rank 5 5-star or something like that. And it was tricky. I did still like it, kind of, because I'm a bit glutton for punishment, and I personally absolutely love challenging content. I have redone Variant 3 probably like 4 times using different imaginary rules for myself, including only 4-star champions and rank 3 5-stars. Then I redid it most recently completely itemless, just to kind of like show to myself and remind myself what that piece of content is. And obviously, the experience that I had initially trying to clear it with like 1 or 2 rank 5 champions and a handful of rank 4 5-stars, opposed to 5 months ago or 6 months ago, when I had already like really stacked roster and rank 3s and so on and so forth. And yeah, I did it itemless, and it wasn't all that hard. I pretty much got through most of the lanes first time, and a couple of lanes I think I redid once or twice, but it wasn't a big deal. I got through it without any problems, to a point where, yeah, I now consider Variant 1 a relatively easy content. And I think the same would happen to many players who didn't explore Variant 1 initially because it was too hard. If you would revisit it now, you'd find yourself able to get through it. So we need to recognize the first fact that our accounts are consistently changing, and same as it was with these celebrity challenges initially, where when the first celebrity challenge was released, it was really, really, really hard. And then the second one got released and had there about the same difficulty level, and it all of a sudden seemed a lot easier. By the fourth Celebrity Challenge came out, it was hour and a half and done. No items needed. Now, every couple of years, they do get like significant difficulty increase to realign themselves to the top of the meta, and then they become hard again. As an example, for instance, most recent Mulaney challenge, and we had a like long break in between them, and it was noticeably more difficult than even a lot of stuff in Act 7. And I like that. And that was the first point that I wanted to say. Not only some content perhaps is specifically designed to be easier, it's also our ability to play the game and our rosters are consistently progressing. Same as I described about the accounts that we have and how much resources we have available to us make content seem easier. In the same aspect, our own skills improve over time. As in, like, when this game started, a player who could land parries consistently, it was mind-blowing level of skill. It's like, oh my god, how can you do a perfectly timed block every time opponent dashes in? It's crazy. But eventually it just became the norm. Same as when you were one of the first persons, one of the first players who could reliably intercept. That was crazy. And now it's normal. Now there is next set of spacing and distance management to use Tiger and She-Hulk and stuff like that perfectly, which is, again, something that everybody finds extremely impressive right now. But if the game continues in a year, it'll become normal. So our own ability to play the game also increases. But that still doesn't solve the problem. If the game becomes too easy, it's going to become boring for many, and it would potentially have disastrous results with many advanced players simply leaving. And my personal opinion about it. When you compare Act 6 and what Act 6 did to players, and now look at Act 7, yes, it's easy to jump to conclusion that Act 7 is just flat out too easy. And it's a lot more straightforward, and you need a lot less specific champions. But the main thing that I noticed myself personally was the amount of joy and happiness that pretty much every single person who came to discuss Act 7 with me had. And I think ultimately enjoyment of the game is the most important thing. And again, don't get me wrong. I am glutton for punishment. I have masochistic tendencies. I am redoing Abyss of Legends for fun. I did Variant 1 with 4-star and Rank 3 5-star champions only. I did Act 5 completion using only 3 stars and Act 4 completion using only 2 stars, and consistently like to push myself and kind of punish myself and just to find some very tricky things to do. But at the same time, I don't think that because I choose to do things like that to myself, everyone in this player base should be subjected to similar experiences or expectations. Because we have plenty of people who just perhaps don't take the game as serious, or are unable to fight as well, or just don't have the account, or don't have the time to get to an account like mine. So ultimately, what I'm trying to get to right now is simply say that I much prefer story content to be as it is in Act 7 over to what it was in Act 6. I think Act 6 was menacing, evil, mean. And whereas there are some enjoyable fights, ultimately Act 6 annoyed, pissed off, and deterred a lot of people from exploring it. Act 7 gives a lot more enjoyment and joy and happiness. And overall, in my personal opinion, is much more healthier piece of content. Not just for the game, but also for the individual completing it, because you're meeting a lot less frustrations. You have a lot less anger towards the game. If you want to have a hard game, play Alliance War at hard level. It's not that hard or that expensive anymore, and many people could get into that. Or most importantly, obviously there is Abyss as well. But at the same time, there is a lack of quote-unquote challenge content. This month we got John Mulaney's challenge, but on a regular basis, if this is the current baseline of content difficulty in variants in Act 7 or whatever, I do think the game is missing that hardcore edge for those who are glutton for punishment, who want to get smacked by unreal attack values and fights where if you accidentally parry, you die, or if you accidentally get hit in a block, you die, and if you miss an intercept, you die. And I would like that too. I like those fights. But I don't think that what Act 6 was, and I don't think that these extreme kind of like fights and fight interactions has any place in the mainstream progression-based content. I think that it has to be clearly labeled as for suckers and for those who are glutton for punishment, for those who want to try and throw their phones against the wall, because this content will be abysmally difficult, right? And that's why, one of the main reasons, because my most recent biggest disappointment with Kabam has been the delaying of that Summer of Pain, because I was really, really hopeful there's going to be something to really challenge and excite me. But also, like, moving forward, we have basically 3 different options, the way I see it, to kind of like satisfy the hardcore players. And number 1, it is to release more specific challenge team content. Let's say John Mulaney's Champion Challenge every other month turned to 11. I think that would scratch that itch a lot of players, just like me, how to be battered and beaten and bruised by game content. And that is obviously the most work intensive, but it also could provide quite a lot of troubles with an aspect of rewards, because it could potentially skyrocket or accelerate progression, and it could leave many people feeling as if though they have missed out. So you cannot give too much rewards and make it worthwhile for difficulty level in comparison, because there will be a large percentage of people who would feel missing out. And not that I want to feel sorry for them, but the main problem there is that people who are not ready and people who that content isn't made for would try to compete it regardless, because they would only see that shiny reward at the end of it. And same thing that happened with John Mulaney's challenge. People with barely ranked up 4 stars and maybe 1 or 2 rank 4, 5 stars were coming. It's like, how do I complete it? How do I complete this? Complete BS. It's like, this challenge is too hard. And if we put in a lot of valuable rewards in that kind of additional extra content, it would definitely make a lot of players feel as if they're like losing out and missing a lot. So you would have a lot of work with still a relatively high amount of frustrated group of players, and you'd have to be very, very cautious with the rewards in that. So I don't think I'm the biggest fan of that. Additional option is to increase a difficulty level of variant or monthly event quest, and then not increase but stack another one on top. Like we just got Cavalier difficulty but release a Thronebreaker difficulty, or instead of variants add a third option where it would be, I don't know, something else. Name it however you want it, but have another step up in difficulty basically in content you're already releasing. But I think that also kind of would meet the same problems, where there would be a large group of players who want to do the content who are not ready for it, and that would make them frustrated. And at the same time, you'd have to be very careful with game economy and how much resources you put in it, and so on and so forth. And I think then the idea that I first heard out of Brian, and I have since heard from Cam and half a dozen other people, is the challenge mode, where you just tack in extra rewards for some voluntarily hardcore challenge, where the difference in rewards not necessarily huge, but still something. And I wouldn't personally want the reward to be purely cosmetic. I would want them to be useful. I'd want them to be the higher end rank up materials, or 6-star signature stones, or 6-star shards, or something like that I personally value, because from my personal quote-unquote whale perspective, there aren't too many items in games that I find it worth to push myself. I quite literally care about units, I care about 6-star shards, I care about 6-star signature stones and 6-star awakening gems, and tier 5 class catalysts. That's pretty much it. So it would have to reside somewhere in there, but it can't be an abundant amount, once again. But it is a very tricky position for the game to be. But at the same time, where we are right now, it is much better, in my opinion, where the game was headed. Because the game was headed to have that level of difficulty as Act 6 was, or the first Act 7.1 beta. And it was about to force that upon all the player base, without choice, without decision, because it would have been a must to progress in the game. And I think it has no right to do so. So currently we are kind of like a step back. Kabam stop, took a step back. They're making all of this content that's enjoyable, but at the same time they took all the teeth out of them. And those teeth have to appear somewhere. That spicy, that juicy, that scary content has to be somewhere. Because currently I start Act 7 and I finished it without items. I started Variant 6 and I'm sure I'm going to finish it without any items. And any items I do end up using in this game is because I'm lazy or because I'm just redoing this for fun. I really desperately do wish for Kabam to release a content where I would have to use some items. But it's a very tricky thing, because again, it can't be mainstream content. Because at this point, the player base is not necessarily where I am in the game. And I am speaking from the minority of people. I have a massive account that's nearly at 3 million. I have like 14 rank 3 6 stars. I play in a high tier alliance. And I fully understand that not everybody has the capabilities or possibilities that I do in this game. And I think ultimately, yes, the game has become slightly more dull, perhaps. I feel less pushed. But at the same time, I think I am enjoying the game more the way it is right now. And the only thing that I'm missing is this challenge mode right now. So I still think that we are in a better position than we would have been prior to the taking the step back, redoing 7.1, doing the roadmaps. But let me know what you guys think. Where do you stand? Are you happy with the current content releases? Because individually, they're all absolutely fantastic. And what's your stance on this whole is MCOC becoming too easy situation? But that's it for me today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya.